Hi everybody, this is Brendon Baillod. I'm going to talk about another rare book tonight that I recently started a restoration on. This is an unusual book. It's History of the Lake Huron Shore Illustrated from 1883. This book is produced by H.R. Page in Chicago, and it's one of two H.R. Page books that I've got. The other one I wrote up, I think a few months ago, and it's the history of Oceana, Mason, and Manistee counties on the Lake Michigan coast. One of the things that's unique about these H.R. Page early Great Lakes, history books is their size. You can see from my hands that this particular book is over a foot high. It actually wouldn't fit on a lot of bookcases because of its size, but that makes it all the more collectible because it has pretty nice plat maps in it and really nice content. So I'm going to talk you through kind of what this book needs in terms of restoration. It'll probably take me at least a month to do the restoration on this, and I may do it in stages just because it does need so much. The reason I acquired this book is because it's exceedingly rare. There are no other copies of this book currently available, and there haven't been for probably about 10 or 20 years. I have never seen one of these offered on the market before. So when I saw this one come up, I really kind of jumped at the opportunity to acquire it. Also, because of its condition, the price wasn't too bad, and because I can do restoration and conservation, it was a real good opportunity, and I think, the appropriate buyer for it. Let me tell you a little bit more about what this book needs. One of the interesting things about this book is that it's got this red leather spine, which you don't see. My other H.R. Page didn't like that. I do believe this is original, though. This is what the book came with. It probably had paper labels, because you don't see any gilt titling on that spine. So I believe it originally had paper. It needs to be cellugelled. There's some red rot on there. It's starting to crack a little bit. But it seems like it's in fairly decent shape still. This book's main challenges are really that its covering is badly damaged. We see up here that the cloth has been literally rubbed through and chewed away. Also, this corner here is really been chewed away by something. It looks to me like possibly rodent damage. Same here, down on the bottom. So really, it's quite badly damaged boards. The other big challenge this book has is that somebody has put a very heavy binding tape here. Obviously, the text block was coming loose, and the hinge paper here had probably detached. And so they thought, well, we'll fix this by putting in this big heavy binding tape. What that did is it pulled this all up. And so you can see how this is deformed now. This doesn't lay flat anymore. This paper here, this page, looks like it was torn out. I'm not sure why or what it contained. I'm probably going to remove it because there's really none of it left. I don't think it contained anything. I have to look at a digital copy of this book online and see what this originally was, but I think it was just torn out by accident. So I'll walk you through some of the content that makes this book particularly desirable. This book is rare because it was produced for some small counties on the eastern coast of the Lower Peninsula of Michigan. And those are Bay County, Alpena County, Alcona County, and Iosco County. I think there's a little bit of Aranac County in here as well. And these books were generally divided into two sections. They had one section where they discussed the real history of the county in terms of its evolution from a wilderness to being small towns. And so usually there was something in there about the native peoples that lived there beforehand, about the French exploration of the area, and then usually who the early settlers were and where their cabins were, things like that. Then it progressed into who the founding fathers were, and lastly there was a big biographical section in these books, and that was there because of the fact that they would go around and sell these books by subscription. They would go to the kind of business leaders and say, oh, do you want to be in the book? Give us money and we'll write you up. So you'll find that there are biographies for all the major early men of industry in the small towns. And so they're important pieces of history for these communities. Not only that, one of the things that I've always found interesting to note is that, and this is 1883, right? It had only been 30 years in many cases since these communities were settled. So It's interesting to think that they would already be writing a fairly nostalgic history book about things that were maybe 30 or 40 years old only. So to our mind, that's very recent, but for settlers in the Midwest of the United States back then, that was serious history. So let's walk through a little bit more. You can see that we've got some damage here. We've got some things separating right here, but they're beautiful big plat maps. So this is Bay and Aranac counties on Saginaw Bay, and you can actually see the township lines in here. It's really pretty cool, and you can see the small, not really small at that point, Bangor, Michigan. Pretty cool. But kind of what people like about these is really this stuff, right? The big ornate Victorian scenes. And you can see how this no longer lays flat. This is deformed. And somebody has put in tape here. This is example of tape acidification. The paper is discolored under here. I can take that tape off with heat or with a solvent, but that paper will never be the same color, and it's brittle now underneath there because of the acidification from that adhesive. Probably the coolest engraving in here, though, in this particular book, is a nautical engraving that you see. This is entitled Mitchell and Boutell's Tugs Leaving Rifle River at Sunset. And you see the big tug music up here, and you see the Luther Westover, a paddle wheel tug, as well as the Laketon and the Annie Moyles. I don't think any of these were ever photographed. I think this may be the only rendition that we have of what these vessels looked like. And they're pretty historic and important vessels to these communities. So really a neat woodcut engraving. Excellent piece. Going through the book, it goes through county by county, and you see a number of plates like this. But here, like you see, I can put my finger right under there. You can see that this signature of the book, a signature is a bundle of pages, has sprung here. There are little cotton twine strands that they use to bind these, to stitch them. And that stitch is let go here. So again, all things that are going to need some attention. You can also see that up on the top here, things have really started to let go. And that's because of two things. It's because when the people pull the book off a shelf, they grab it by the top and pull on the top. But it's also because somebody probably had picked the book up by its top and left it unsupported on the other side and damaged those threads. The book, it's not in bad shape here. You can see there's a little bit of yellowing on the pages, but not too much. Here's a good example of the spine actually being broken here. And again, some PVA, polyvinyl acetate glue, applied into the back of the binding will strengthen that right up and close that. So I can fix that. And you can see that this binding it's very, very frail in here. But the main issue that I have is that the back has got the same heavy binding tape treatment. And you can see it doesn't sit flat. This paper is, unnaturally kind of stuck there. And then we have, again, the big, heavy black binding tape. So I'm going to need to take that off. And again, a chewed corner here. But otherwise, a fairly solid book, if you want to see the back of it here. Filthy, in need of cosmetic work. So really, this restoration will have three parts to it from my perspective. And that is, I'm going to need to clean the book. I'm going to use a dry chemical sponge to go over and remove all the years of nicotine, because everyone smoked back then, grease, cooking oil, aerosolized in the air. Everybody used to heat their house with coal and then later with oil. That's all on this book cover. That should brighten up this gilt quite a bit. I'm also going to clean the pages where necessary. I'm going to remove any of those adhesives. I'm going to remove that big heavy backing hinge from the front and the back. Then I will refasten it. I'll do structural repair to make the book structurally sound. I will cellugel the leather so that it becomes supple again and stops the red rot that's going on. Then I'll probably work on the cosmetic repair of the front and the back, particularly these corners. That's going to be difficult. That may be what takes me the longest. I'm expecting this to be about a month or two repair. I will try to show you what the final result is of this. I'm going to learn some new techniques in doing this. It's been a while. Actually, I don't think I've ever seen a corner this bad and actually gone through and restored it and put a square corner on it. So that'll be a bit of a challenge. If you have a copy of this book, I'd like to know about it. Let me know. One of the wood cut engravings in here had a top plate and a bottom plate, and somebody just ripped the top one right off. And so I'd like to potentially get a facsimile copy of that to tip in if I could. One other note about this book, it was reprinted in 1976. Not in a very large run, but there are a few copies of the 1976 reprint out there. They're not in this resolution and obviously not this ornate. I'm really fortunate to have found an original because they are extremely collectible and extremely scarce. This one I was able to obtain for a fairly reasonable price because of its condition, and because I'm a book restorer, I kind of believe I was the right person to own this book and to conserve it for the future. And again, my whole collection will all end up in a public archive at some point. So I'm glad to be able to give a second life to this really rare and valuable piece of Great Lakes maritime history. If you have any questions, feel free to leave them in the comments. And as always, thanks for watching.